Finlandia, Finlandia, sinne tasmata kala olivara, kun molotov lupas jurkarki harosi, hurarmen yor helasi sai shaidan marosi, niet molotov, valat helit hiniman guinitzer bobrikov, niet molotov, Valatelitini manguinitster bobrikov. Finlandia, Finlandia, mannaremin ninjarolid vastos ankara, kun karalaster alkor hiromolo tulutus, lopui moneniavan puhe pulustus, niet molotov, valatelitini manguinitster bobrikov. Niet molotov, valatelitini manguinitster bobrikov. Finlandia, Finlandia, sita pelka voita moten punararmia, jo molotov soino eta katsas torporpas nin, tushina aikio karai metar krasvarski, niet molotov, valat helitini manguinitster bobrikov, niet molotov, valat helitini manguinitster bobrikov. Huralinta, sileon pin molotov in torpan ma, sine passas talanis jurmutken hurajit, poletrukit kamasarit jar porchoskosvit, niet molotov, valatilit hiniman guinitster bobrikov, niet molotov, valatestin mininan guinitster bobrikov, niet molotov, valatilitin manguinitster bobrikov, niet molotov, valatilitin manguinitster bobrikov. The name on that song is self-evident. Trump's not allowed to celebrate Cinco de Mayo because he's a colonizer. That joke hit me like a day and a half ago, and it's so funny. It's so funny. Like, you can't participate in the Spanish holiday because you're looking at Greenland like, I don't know. I thought that was pretty funny. I hope you find that kind of funny too. And Trump's not that bad. He's really, he's doing exactly what I expected him to do. Actually, to be perfectly honest with you, with a little bit more goalying, Israel taking control over the country than I expected. You couldn't get worse than Biden in that particular aspect, but I'm shocked. I'm shocked at how dedicated Trump is to trying to ink out some form of peace deal. And like, it's funny because I was talking to my mom about this earlier. When the IDF thinks that they're fighting a holy war, like a counter jihad, but in reality it's just a jihad with a Hebrew name, Operation Iron Swords. And they think that they're in an existential war against good and evil, against light versus darkness, which is what, for the last year, under the last Biden year, that's what they were saying. You could go and read what they were saying on Twitter, translate it, filter through the, like Nazi rhetoric, like out in the open, most Nazi rhetoric I've ever seen in my entire life sort of stuff, that imperial Japanese Nazi Germany sort of stuff. Filter through that, and you'll find out that they genuinely believe that they're in a war as the children of light versus the children of darkness and Edom and all that. And it's funny when Trump goes in there very loudly proclaiming, that it's for my golf courses, it's for my casinos, it's for my real estate. It's not actually for any of you people and your existential war of light versus darkness. This is actually all about money. And I personally believe that that's one of the best things that you could possibly do. You would embolden them if you turned against them. That just means, oh, it's harder for the children of light to fight. You would embolden them if you support them in their like philosophical war against the Arab people as a whole. There's nothing that would take more wind out of somebody's sails if they think that they're fighting a holy war than to find out, without any shadow of a doubt, unequivocally, it is true that you are part of other country's military base and you are fighting on their behalf. Hey. Nostalgia I forgot I had! Save me! Nostalgia I forgot I had! Nostalgia I forgot I had! Save me! Save me! Nostalgia I forgot I had! That's you. That's you. The sage you could be. Yeah, man, it's cool. I can remember that. But it's awesome I can experience it right now, too. And that's the entire root of nostalgia. So I can appreciate the warmth of knowing without flipping out. That's the sage you could be. Keep that in mind. One of my biggest worries in regards to drugs, and say, and people who say point blank, depends on how you use them, is exactly the omnipresent loss of memory and occasional substitution of assumption that comes along with drug use. The latter leading to anxiety, paranoia, and even straight-up psychosis. I do worry about people using things like antidepressants and stimulants to better their lives and make good memories to push them up out of whatever hole that they're in. Likely due to the fact that we have so much free choice that we can mash the button that feels good originally until it no longer feels good, and instead we're only going downwards and making things worse in the long run. We have the freedom to do that. That's one of the three principles. Instead of hope, joy, and charity in Christianity, it's fraternity, freedom, and what was the other one? You know the three enshrined in the Constitution: life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Right? Fraternity and liberty. It's basically sum up those three. But just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Doesn't mean it's a good idea to do it. But it also does depend on how you do it, right? So the problem that I see, the worry that I have, is that people could use it to make good memories, yes, but then they would forget about the memories due to the impact that the drug has on their brain. I'm pretty sure stimulants don't have this issue as bad as other drugs, but I would also worry about the consistent side effect that all drugs have, where they impact your memory very severely, and they paint your, since you're stimulated and on an adulterant, when you're making that memory, the memory isn't pure, as in, you will remember what happened, but it will be garbled, because you won't be feeling what you felt in that moment. I don't think that people who take drugs and then explore the world and then have sex with prostitutes and then gamble a bunch of money that is given to them and then, does extreme sports and stuff like that, I don't think those people have as good a memory set in their book of memoirs than the people who sacrificed, worked hard, went through the downs, and then achieved the ups when they were taking care of their family, when they were helping people around their neighborhood, when they were helping their state become a better place to live, when they were working on goals. Like, this is the whole serotonin versus dopamine thing, right? Like, everybody will tell you, working out, making the right decisions, investing and to pay dividends in the future as opposed to the present, that's serotonin. Dopamine is just moving in the right direction. And it doesn't seem like anybody who focuses specifically on dopamine, which is mostly what the ADHD medications, the stimulants, focus on, to be actually happy in the long term. And SSRIs, they make you feel perfectly satisfied with life for a period of time while permanently atrophying your brain's ability to create serotonin molecules and uptake them into your own brain at the same rate as a normal human being. And a lot of people, they struggle with feeling like they're not as happy as they were when they were younger. But you also have children that are put on SSRIs. So I think the main key there is in the fact that you're grading your brain into Swiss cheese with modernity and all its tools, such as the the brain grader. You know, I think it genuinely has to do with the fact that people get sad sometimes. The only option that's available to them, like you're in pain, you go to the doctor, the only option available to you is opiates, and then you get set up in a cycle where things are so bad that you can't pull up out of them. Like, I would see a lot of people who got on antidepressants or stimulants to have started their path to that, their journey to starting to take that with like doing a bunch of weed or something like that, and then getting all chemically unbalanced, and then feeling off, and then not being able to achieve the same sort of enjoyable laughing at nothing, eating food and enjoying it even if it's not that good, gorging yourself and stuff like that, the things that people do when they're high on weed. Not being able to attain that anymore makes you feel like you're depressed, but in reality you're caught betwixt these waves. And I think that's a lot of what happens, is that everybody has low points and everybody has high points, but you also got to be looking at the long term. Like, is it really, it should be like a break glass in case of emergency moments to get on any pharmaceutical. I really, 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 truly believe that. I believe that even with antibiotics. I think that also should be a break glass in case of emergency moment, where like, okay, their own natural immune system cannot handle this. Ergo, we're going to break the glass and give them the thing that might actually cause an issue where fungus is colonizing their guts, because there are bacteria that your gut naturally keeps inside of it that fight back various aspects of reality that is omnipresent in our leaky bodies that are constantly interacting with the world outside them. And something that's shown is, and you can look this up if you don't believe me, if you take antibiotics for long enough, you could have fungus colonizing your guts. So this is a big issue. All these things, they have negative side effects. They have consequences. And so I genuinely hope that people recognize the fact that you might think that you're getting a good life out of it, but in retrospect is what you really need to be judging at, because right now, like for your body, it's not worth investing more in the thing over time that will give you the surety and the calmness in the storm to weather any battle. And that is aligned with words like Zen. And people who study things like Buddhism and Zen, they don't need drugs. They're taught that they don't need drugs, and they know that they don't need drugs, and they accomplish incredibly harsh on your body exercises, like sitting and staring at a wall for 12 hours, doing that for every single day for multiple months. And they're happy doing that. Why do you think that is? It's because they have really dug deep into looking at what the long-term dividends for their behaviors is. And when they're younger, they can do that. So that when they're older, they're more satisfied with any interaction and action that they choose to take. So please keep that in mind, my lovely fans and friends, and also enemies who watch my show just to try to poke fun at me. Love you guys. Speaking of which, sorry I haven't been here yesterday. My notes are back in order. Got a ton of them. I'm finally through the bottleneck in this project, so I'm making inroads on that. And yeah, just went through a rough couple of weeks. Now I'm doing much better. So I want to continue to try and be interesting every day, because I don't want to be uninteresting every day, interesting every other day, or spotty on my upload schedule. I want to be interesting every day. And speaking of which, let's move past this intro and get moving schmoving. So the Ukraine war is more intense than I've seen it any time in the last year and a half right now. Ukraine is still losing, but they are really, really, really working hard to establish something and to push on as many lines as possible. But as I have told you before on the show, Russia has them almost completely surrounded. Every single time they forge a new inroad into the Russian borders, that's immediately smacked down within like 2 weeks. It's done. That little run, that little charge into enemy lines is done. And it's just slowly, every single day, new lines are drawn in favor of the Russians. You see this on these maps, and it's not a Russian, pro-Ukraine, pro-American, pro-Eastern, pro-Western, anything. It is objective military summarizers and their footage on the ground and the tools that they use to collectively, trying to tell the truth by collectively holding each other accountable, figure out where these lines are. And Ukraine is, like, as I said, a third gone. Like, I'd say that the borders itself have shifted like a quarter into the favor of the Russians. Like, the borders, you will not get those back. But like a third of Ukraine is just collapsed completely. Mostly on the Eastern Front, which is where the most Nazis are, is around the Azov region. Kiev, mind you, is not part of the concept of Holy Jerusalem. Holy Jerusalem is like, the center of it is in Odessa, which makes a lot of sense. And then it goes all the way over to, like, southern Moldavia and that little part of the northern Bulgarian, peninsula area there. That's the most western borders. It goes all the way up to Zarnitsia region. And Holy Jerusalem's capital is legitimately in land already taken by Russia. So if you look at the border of the Shabbat Lubavitch cult's proposed nation of Holy Jerusalem, and you see how it goes all the way around Kiev. This is an important point. It goes around Kiev. It does not consider Kiev part of Holy Jerusalem. It goes around Kiev. It takes land that has been thoroughly cut in half by the Russian offensive at this point. Some people have speculated that Putin might be part of Shabbat Lubavitch. I have seen no evidence of that. Might just be more coping, more sneating, more, oh, trust me, I didn't make a bad investment a year ago. Why in the hell do so many guys in the sector shove their fingers up girls' asses? You got Styx Hexenhammer doing it. You got Ralph doing it. Why in the hell why does this keep happening? I feel so bad for any warm-bodied female in the vicinity of the sector. That's the exclusion zone. You don't want to enter that. Is this what Japanese public transport is like? Oh, gosh, I hope not. Oh. Well. Dickensian and Cartesian are both really good words, in my opinion. Although I did not know that Cartesian meant anything relating to masturbatory René Descartes' thought experiments until a few years ago. Dickensian means relating to the theme of Charles Dickens. I think that's just lovely. I actually like Pip from South Park. He's one of my favorite characters. But deep in my heart, I have a fond appreciation for the British. And I really hope that they are one of the next people to turn towards what I would consider the light and away from like 900 years. Like, as an Irish person, I'm very tempted to go, 800 years! 800 years! But in reality, 900 plus years, their leaders were being killed in England. We have a common mutual enemy, and there is a common good to fight on and a common ground to stand on. And I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with Great Britain as a concept, even though people like Cromwell do make me sick. Using Christianity as a reason to kill hundreds of thousands of Christian people. Really, truly, get me his head on a spike. Oh, you have that? Lovely. Gotta love it when you show when they show you you ask for it, they show you a pronunciation for a rare word. And it's like upside down letters and symbols you've never seen in your entire life. And they're just like, "This make it easy for you, punk." I'm like, well, no, sir. No, it don't. I don't know etymology. Oh, no. What's a fractal? What's a glottal stop? Oh, no. Oh. I think the only thing that ever made me question my faith when I was younger was hearing things like, well, every Friday is a Good Friday, actually. And as a Protestant who knew things only on a surface level, that slapped. It really did. Like, because I didn't know. I didn't know the significance of it. And now that I know things like the Good Friday Accords, now I know there is true significance, whether Protestants want to believe it or not. And I think a lot of them have come along to the fact that the Catholics aren't the problem. It's corruption, greed, and the fact that absolute power corrupts absolutely, and with great power comes great responsibility. I think a lot of the Protestants have that. They'd have that down pat. And I have the strongest feeling that if we can get a genuinely conservative, pro-life, anti-war, because most of them are, but like you got people like Parolin who will 1000% support the continuation of the Ukraine war until every last person in Ukraine, every last Christian in Ukraine is dead. This is an important thing because you still got like 500,000 cam whores in Kiev that aren't going to be sent to the front lines at any time. Essentially, a wall of bodies protecting, that guy, the ballerina guy, whatever his name is. Ugh. Friday, woo! Good Friday, yeah! Somehow the Florida Bright Line, a little annoying train service, essentially connecting Chicago to Miami, has lost some $700 million. All while being the most dangerous line in the country and being incredibly annoying. I've lived near train tracks. I know what trains sound like. I know how much vibrations trains put off. There's something seriously wrong with some of the trains that we have around here. And I'm not even sure if it's the Bright Line or if it's some new other trains running on our tracks. But everybody near the tracks have been complaining like the stuff in their house is breaking. It's such a violent shaking. And you'll feel it from like miles away. I'll just be walking around in the historic district. A train will come along. You'll hear their horn way off in the distance, but it'll be shaking everything as if you're right there. This monstrous little project has cost us almost $1 billion, which is just like postmodern America in its dying stage personified. That is Boeing personified, And I think that's also a good sign of what's to come. If you have more states, like Ohio might be the next one, you might have Tennessee, maybe Indiana, become the next Texas, because first it was Texas. All the stuff that was happening in Florida happened first a couple of years before it started, like 2021 in Florida, in Texas. Greg Abbott, one of the worst people in our government. DeSantis, a lot better. Like, I can't say he does a lot more good things, but he's in the same camp. They're in the same faction of they care more about Israel than they care about their own country. You give them the pen, you give them the executive pen to sign the executive order, they're signing in 20 years for anybody who criticizes Israel into law as soon as possible, right? One of the many reasons, one of the dozen or so reasons why I voted for Trump, specifically because he needs to beat, candidates like Meatball Ron. He has to. And so far, I'm happy. Also, the fact that he's taking a lot of the red meat that could have been done by the DeSantis presidency away from a future DeSantis presidency, meaning that he's got less and less to promise because it's already being done. And all he would really have to promise is, I'm going to be even more extreme with Israel, which is effectively the thing that lost Biden-Harris in 2024. So I'm serious about this. I'm really, really serious. Sometimes I'm just like, I'm unsure. I'm just speaking. I'm just speculating on this. In this particular instance, this is going to be something that will prevent men from getting laid 20 years from now. 20, maybe even 30 years from now, women are going to remember who clapped and cheered like a trained seal when children were being starved, when women were being bombed, when an entire country was put to the slaughter. People are going to remember. People are going to remember. And it also goes to the biblical prophecies of Ezekiel, the fact that that entire land is cursed and is destined for constant strife and chaos. And Palestinians probably should have read that passage of the Old Testament a little bit better. I'm not sure if Ezekiel managed to make it into the Quran. I have never read the Quran before. It's one of the only religious documents I've never read. However, I also know this, and I've said this before, and I'll say this again. They are the custodians of the desert. Anybody who lives in France, this is something that was a big thing in the past, who tries to come over to the Middle East, who lives in France, who lives in Savoy or Provence, who lives in America, other than New Mexico or Texas, anybody who tries to come over and occupy the Middle East ends up having a terrible time, because your customs are water fat and you are used to comforts that aren't available in the Middle East. And that's where you get Dubai, right? Dubai is like extracting no. I was going to say thousands, but they are not that ambitious. Well, they are that ambitious. They're not that capable. Extracting hundreds of years worth of work and funneling it all into a little spot where you can, like, essentially bang high-class prostitutes and ruin a hotel room and fill it up with sludge and be an absolute little monster to your heart's content in the Middle East. And that's that. And it's just like, well, what is it for? It's for that. It's for nothing else but that. That is legitimately all the Saudi sheiks are about. Even Israel is more noble than Saudi Arabia. So I've said for a very long time, Saudi Arabia is my least favorite country. If we went to war with Saudi Arabia, I would sign up to be on the front lines. But Israel's close second. They're coming up very close behind. For it doesn't need to exist. It's full of miserable people who don't belong there, specifically because they don't belong there. Their ancestors did not live there. Their ancestors did not give them genetic immunity to olive pollen. So raising everything, and this is happening a lot in America too, especially here in Florida, raising every single plant in an attempt to avoid sneezing, allergies. That's a word I couldn't find. Allergies. That is the genuine attempt, and it is the most pathetic little baby's attempt of controlling their parent, which is God, naturally. This is a Gnostic thing. Baby's attempt at controlling their parent. Screaming and crying, and, oh, it's so unjust, that I can't have whatever I want whenever I want it, that I can't do whatever I want, even the detriment to myself and others. What an injustice that my parent, God, has certain rules and regulations and laws that are set and will not be bent. What an injustice. I better, work hard to destroy things when they're not looking, or, when I convince myself that they're not looking. Oh, well, let's move on for that, shall we? Absolutely phenomenal work from the DeSantis team. Good job lighting billions on fire while they rip the copper wire out of the frickin' walls, i.e., turning our parks into dumps. You know, Israeli crackheads are eating good down here. I'll admit it. They're eating good down here. And I genuinely do hope that the consequences aren't too dire, right? Because there are always consequences. And a lot of these people, they're used to jet setting when the bill comes due. They will rack up a debt, which is what a lot of psychotic people think is a sane strategy. They will rack up debt, and they will use that particular liquidity to focus on being as untouchable as possible from the system that they racked up debt from. And debt has to go somewhere. It's taken out on someone. You know, the gold rush never really ended. And just like back in the California days, the people making the money are the ones selling Caterpillar and Volvo shovels. Not the internet-convinced prospectors digging in the ground. You see? So many bad things started advancing in 2022, and right now we're in the full swing of many of these same issues that trace back to Israel. It hit me that all of this is likely due to Biden pulling out of Afghanistan and cutting a vast majority of the heroin out of the black market. It makes perfect sense how that single decision would pressure the Israelis into a blitzkrieg. And the funny thing is, it's unlikely Biden would have ever done that if it wasn't for Hunter Biden being a drug addict and Beau Biden dying from the military burn pit inhalation he got around Kosovo and other places that he served. That combination, not just one thing alone, but that combination of the military literally killed his, prodigy son, his, I guess, firstborn and adherent, and his bad backup kid ended up a severe drug addict who, mind you, after shacking up with his brother's ex, they both would get Star of David tattoos. So he's a militant Zionist too. Biden has been on the record for 40 years saying that he is a huge Israel supporter, and that if Israel didn't exist, we would have to make one. And all of this incredible Zionism, this massive wave of Zionism that you see popping up out of nowhere, literally incredible, as in no credibility, is a result of Joe Biden's direct actions on multiple levels. Feeling bad about the Afghanistan withdrawal and saying, no, I'm sorry, we're not going to go back in there and get back the heroin from the Taliban. They've already destroyed most of our fields anyway. It'll take a decade to put that back up to production. However, I can allow you to destroy your neighbors. A good Catholic, good Christian he is. Just goes to show, the Novus Ordo accepts all kinds. DeSantis, Joe Biden. If you accept Masons and Zionists, which they don't actually do that in public, but they do that, they allow that as like a private policy, unspoken policy, you do not have Catholicism. You don't. When even the evangelicals show more spine than you, you're done. You're cooked. Well, I'm glad I'm not Novus Ordo Catholic. I've been reading through the Gelray Armorial on and off recently, and I gotta say, some of those coat of arms from noble knightly houses are absolutely insane looking. Real carnival stuff going on there. You got an entire monk on your hat and some crazy stuff on your shield. That's nuts. Legitimately, with the tonsure and the robes and everything, you got a whole monk on your hat. Because that's your crest, essentially. I think it's hilarious the Zionists get all bent out of shape calling anti-Zionism anti-Semitism and vice versa. But when the play is going into actually anti-Semitic communities to subvert them, it's all wholesome buddy, It's all well, actually, we're an idea. We're what happens when Hitler gets his way. Is we're the race back in their proper land, and everything's all good, right? Blah, 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 blah. And it's so funny. It's so funny because it's just well, what was all of this for? You just hate black people? Is that it? You hate people that annoy you, but the most annoying and the source of a lot of violence and strife and drugs and a sex addiction and psychological problems and other maladies in societies. You're okay with those, but you're just kind of you want to actively fight on the bottom in a civil war against your own country on behalf of the people that want to destroy your own country. Just goes to show, white nationalism, whatever the hell white is supposed to mean, neo-Nazism, it's all a shell game. It's all a sham, and it very likely, most of the neo-Nazi groups very likely trace their way back to Mossad, as in the organization that is allowed to go into every country's sovereign zone, sovereign space, collaborate with their government as a leading partner over Nazism, over Nazis existing and fleeing to other countries after World War II. Why would you ever get rid of the problem? Why would you ever end your organization's ability to independently audit any country in the world? You would set up neo-Nazi groups and put them all over the world specifically for that casus belli. It's not very hard to wrap your head around. I've said this before. I hope some of you take that knowledge and you propagate it, because that's exactly what the heck is going on with some of this stuff. Like, it's proven. Because all you got to do is look up, like, the neo-Nazis that get to take trips to Israel, the neo-Nazis that Yair Netanyahu's friends with, the neo-Nazi groups that frequently buddy up with Israeli politicians, as well as exhibition in highly Jewish areas, and then never commit any violence, not that I want them to, but how it's all a show, right? You got to look out for these histrionic folks. I'm telling you, when it comes to the CIA being mostly theater kids, you got to look out for histrionic folks. Some of the best histrionic folks that I'll tell you will also tell you got to look out for histrionic folks. Yeah. The anti-Zionist prayer. I pray that you never encounter an enemy that's as cruel to you as you are to yours. That's getting above it. One closely guarded secret regarding the Hebrew people that reveals itself through historical studies is how much they took over the world through other cultures and people. Armenia in the southern Caucasus, Little Armenia in Anatolia, Arabia, and that's a deep, deep well that I need to get into. It's just so much involving the Phoenicians that's a whole half an episode. The Seljuk Turks through Arslan, Israel. Arslan like the lion, Israel like the, Rothenburg and Frankfurt in Germany, Simeon and Aksum and Ethiopia. And that's just stuff that I could name off the top of my head. That's actually impressive, how you have distinctly Hebrew forces completely entrenched in Islamic, Christian, other nations. And the long-term consequences of that and the negative impact of the area because of that ends up leaning towards where the moment in history that we're in now. It's fascinating. It's fascinating stuff. ISIS Khorasan is all over where the Seljuk Turks originally came from, near Bukhara, Samarkand area. All over the place there. And it's very likely ISIS Khorasan, ISIS-K, were the ones that actually attacked Israel on October 7th. Alongside Apache helicopters provided to them by the United States, refilled on the record, on notes, refilled at Israeli depots that are going and strafing people at like the Nova Music Festival and other people around where they wanted October 7th to be a terror attack, which it was at baseline, but it was a terror attack orchestrated by the Israeli government, operated by the Israeli government, likely operated by ISIS Khorasan as well, and seems to have more to do with those three factions than Hamas itself, which says they don't even want to govern Gaza. They're just the only body that has any legitimacy in the area right now after a deliberate targeting of every single democratic faction in the area by Israel for decades and decades. Bibi is on record saying that he wants Hamas to be the leadership of Gaza because that means there will never be a two-state solution. There will never be a Palestine. One of my favorite atheist tropes of all time is speaking for Jesus with only tertiary knowledge of biblical events. Like saying Jesus loved absolutely everybody, but like not only that, that he hung around like punk scumbags that somehow existed in like incredibly conservative Judea. You know? I don't think that he's a creature of pure effective altruism. I think he's a creature of benevolent pragmatism in a way that, you know, a lot of people say that he overturned the tables of the moneylenders at the temple. He didn't actually do that. What he did was he took a whip and he chased all the animals out of the temple, which signified the end of animal sacrifice. And in the process, tables got knocked over. Cowardly, you know, bean counters taxing people to use the religious institution. It's fascinating when you actually look into a lot of that stuff and you find out, oh, a lot of the like pop culture Christianity I was raised with, completely off point. All right, y'all, this one went real long, so I hope y'all enjoyed it, and let me know if there's anything I can do better. All right, y'all. Cheers.